Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this special broadcast here on British Muslim TV, broadcasting via Sky, Freeview and internationally via Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Today we're going to be unpacking the challenges and opportunities that Muslim charities here in the UK face during Ramadan under lockdown. Now, typically it's unorthodox for the editor-in-chief to be sat before you exploring this topic. But this programme was inspired by a series of comments, requests and conversations that I had privately with individuals who expressed their concerns about the sector. So why not unpack it for you, the viewers? This is your channel. British Muslim TV is here to serve the community. In today's programme, we're going to put some difficult questions to a panel of experts in the hope we can unpack it all. But be sure to join us in this conversation on social media at British Muslim TV. A warm welcome, though, to our panel, consisting of Nick Donaldson, Head of Faith Charities Engagement at the Charity Commission, Adeem Younis, Founder and Trustee of the Wakefield-based Penny Appeal, and Dr. Husna Ahmad, OBE, Founder of Global One 2015. Plus, we'll be joined later by Nasir Rafiq, Founder and Director of Dua Governance. Let's start, though, with Nick Donaldson from the Charities Commission. Nick, this Ramadan under lockdown it's a very unique condition and scenario for the Muslim community to face. I mean, essentially community fundraising activities have almost been, dare I say, shut down because of the restrictions, understandably so. And for many elders this Ramadan, it may be the first time that they've actually donated and given their zakat digitally. So how do how can they ensure that the organisations, the charities that they are donating to are genuine?
Well, thanks very much, Joseph, for having me on. I think the main thing to start by saying is that people should absolutely keep on giving. There's so much generosity at Ramadan, and so much fantastic work, and so many projects that rely on the generosity of Muslims at Ramadan. There are a few things people can do to make sure that they're giving to legitimate charities, including when they're giving online. The first thing they can do is check they're giving to a registered charity, so it should be registered with the Charity Commission. And you can go online at www.gov.uk/check charity, and you can input the registered number. It should have a registered number or its name, and find out more information about it and check that it's registered. You should also be wary of unsolicited emails at this time, so you should give to charities that you have a relationship with, that you've heard of, that you have an association with. You shouldn't just click through on any email that you receive. If you do get a link, you can always go to the charity's website itself. You can type it in via a search engine, find it, click on the charity itself, and make sure you give by its official page, and that you're not duped into giving to a scam via a link that's not official.
Sure. I mean, the Muslim Charities Forum estimates that, British Muslims are known to be very, very generous, and they estimate that around £130 million gets donated by British Muslim donors within the UK over the course of Ramadan. What warnings do you have for the Muslim charity sector as a whole this Ramadan? They have a huge responsibility, don't they?
Well, I think they certainly have a responsibility, but they have the same responsibility that all charities have, which is to ensure that the money that comes from the donors' generosity, and as you say, it's huge generosity, enormous sums given in this time during Ramadan, that generosity ultimately transfers to proper charitable activity on the ground. This Ramadan, I think we'll see increased numbers of projects domestically, so not just, there's always work being done domestically and internationally, but in response to the coronavirus, more projects helping people in the UK. But also there will be a continuation, as there always is, a generosity of money going internationally. And I think for charities operating internationally, it's particularly important that they make sure that they're working with legitimate partners, that they're checking out those partners, that they're capable of delivering projects on the ground, and that they're following up, they're monitoring the projects to make sure that that generosity is ultimately transferring to charitable delivery overseas.
And it must be quite hard to measure that in these times, though, given that, field trips presumably have been cancelled due to the travel restrictions.
Well, there are steps people can take, notwithstanding the issues with travel. There are local partners who can undertake checks on the ground there's local reporting, and it's part of the responsibility of or the duties of trustees to make sure they've got the steps in place to ensure that projects are being properly delivered, and that's what the public would expect. And so we'd expect trustees to be thinking about the current context, if they aren't able to do direct trips themselves, to be thinking about how they're going to make sure that the projects are ultimately delivered. But I would say that we don't want people to be disproportionate. I think a lot of the support that goes on. So, for example, mosques might be sending small amounts of money overseas to support fundraising appeals. When you've got much lower levels of money, the amount that we expect is less, and we just expect a reasonable amount of assurance that the money has ultimately been spent properly.
Well, talking of assurance, there are concerns in the community about accountability, integrity, transparency. This is fundamentally what this programme is all about today. So if a member of the public suspects improprieties, unethical practices, or even a staff member within an organisation or a volunteer or a trustee suspects foul play occurring within a British UK registered charity, or one in England and Wales certainly as far as the Charity Commission is concerned, how do they get in touch with you, and what's your responsibility in response to that?
Well, I think the first thing that the public should consider is, if they think there's been a scam, it may be something that needs to be reported to the police, and you can report that via actionfraud.police.uk, so the public can go there. But if the public have a concern about a charity specifically, normally the best route is to contact the charity directly itself, allow them to respond via their complaints procedure. If you've gone to the charity and they haven't provided the kind of response that you would expect, then you can contact the Charity Commission. Our website has information via gov.uk/complain-about-charity, or just type in complain about a charity into an online search engine, and you should find the information coming up there. So the public can complain to us. They should always look to provide the evidence about how funds have been misused, or whether there's been a safeguarding or abuse incident or anything like that. They should provide as much information as they can to support anything that they're asserting about a charity. But if you're within a charity, we've got a whistleblowing process. So via that link I mentioned, again, for searching for complain about a charity, if you find out that our page on that provides information on how to whistleblow from inside an organisation. It also provides details about an organisation called Protect that you can call to get support on issuing or sending in whistleblowing information. If you're a trustee of a charity, if your trustees have got concerns that something's gone wrong in a charity, then you should submit a serious incident report to the Charity Commission. And you can find that via the same page, or again search for Serious Incident Reporting Charity Commission online and submit the information via that.
Thank you for that insight into that, Nick. And on that, I'm conscious we're going to go to the break and we'll be picking up on this a bit later on, but just want to throw this quickly to Dr. Husna and Adeem. I mean, what's your experience been in terms of maintaining governance in your relevant positions and organisations? Adeem, if I may.
We've had a very long engagement with the Charity Commission. We completed a 5-year engagement early 2019, which Penny Appeal was wholly compliant with. And I think as a new startup kind of charity, the Charity Commission worked with us and helped us a lot through the early stages and through kind of our real high growth phase of the charity as well. So, we were very, very fortunate in terms of having a hand-holding relationship with the Commission. But I think, in terms of because it's a serious responsibility, and I take that extremely seriously personally, because, the donors, as Nick mentioned, are very, very generous throughout the year. Muslim donors are exceptionally generous, and more so in the month of Ramadan, which we are now in. And I think every single penny that we take from donors, from individuals, from kind of groups, from businesses, from institutions, we take that responsibility extremely seriously.
Well, talking of responsibility, we're going to come back to that, Adeem, but I'm conscious that Nick's got to get back to work with the rest of the Charity Commission, of course, the government responding collectively, of course, to the COVID-19 crisis. So, Nick, I'm going to wish you all the best. Thank you so much for joining us and for giving us that insight here on British Muslim TV.
We all have the potential to be whoever we want to be.
Let us be grateful for what Allah has given us. Wallahi, this is so humbling.
Let us rejoice in our common humanity and live together peacefully in a way that is pleasing to God, in a way that follows the ways of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Patient perseverance is needed in all our affairs.
Revelation was when Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam would come to him in the form of a man.
Ensure that the body is in a state whereby it will be easy for you from a practical perspective to give ghusl.
I realized early on that something was wrong. My daughter, she could not speak. She was diagnosed with autism. I was in a new country and I did not know how to cope with it. We had no friends and no family. We had no support. I tried to socialize with other parents, but I went into severe depression. My daughter, she had delayed milestones. She did not walk on time, she could not speak properly. But my life changed when I met Barnados. They have supported me in ways that I cannot describe in words. They have given me a confidence and made me able to help my daughter. Now, I'm giving back. I'm working with Barnados to help other parents like me because I know I have been in that situation where I cried every day saying, why me? So I just want to help them with my knowledge and my skills and my personal knowledge of autism. Barnados has changed my life. I don't know what I would do without them.
You can embrace Islam without ever worrying about substantially changing your culture.
The more knowledge a child can gain about the world around them, the better for them, I think.
I think it may be possible to love your enemy. It's not easy, but it's possible.
Welcome back to this special programme examining the role of Muslim charities during this Ramadan. And we had a very interesting chat before the break, and I'm delighted to mention and say that Nasir Rafiq, founder and director of Dua Governance, joins us via Skype, in addition to the two guests still with us, Dr. Husna and Adeem Younis. Great to have you all with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. Nasir, I want to start with yourself, if I may. Given your decades of experience as a chartered accountant and an expert financial advisor, what, in your professional opinion, is the simplest, easiest thing that the trustees of charities should be looking to adjust to be more lean? What is the biggest thing that needs to be adjusted and solved and resolved to be more lean in the sector?
I think the biggest thing that I would say is that when these charities were set up, or 15 years ago, they were very small charities, and we had the trustees, the founding trustees. Those charities had different challenges at that time. Now they've become really big charities, tens of millions of pounds. In the last reported accounts, 20 charities raised £370 million. Now, big charities require a different way of operating. You can't operate a charity that raises tens of millions of pounds, same as it was when it raised only a couple of £1 million or £5 million. So the approach of the trustees, the way the organisation run, requires a change. So the same trustees, I mean, it's okay to have the same trustees, but the way they run the organisation needs to change. You need to have different systems and processes, the way you make your management accountable, your assurance systems, your processes, those need to change. So there needs to be a recognition that a bigger organization requires a different way of operating. A lot of these trustees in many Muslim charities have never worked in big organizations. This is the first time they actually experience a big organization. A lot of the issues stem because of this fact. I think the second area where it's important that needs to be implemented for greater efficiencies and strength within the sector is the budget process. International relief organizations are complicated organizations, a lot of moving parts. You can only control that by having a robust budget, so you get a total picture. So when you take your decisions, those decisions are taken in the context of the budget. It's not a case where somebody heard something or a manager basically makes a lot of noise and you go with it. No, it needs to be in the context of a big budget, and that budget needs to be in the context of the audited accounts. So there needs to be some kind of credibility in reference to it. And the last thing I would say is hidden costs. Within big organizations, there are sometimes a lot of hidden costs. And the trustees need to be able to understand what they are and how to deal with. Like, for example, cost of fundraising. When you're looking at cost of fundraising, it should be about, right, okay, I'm spending £1 and how many pounds are coming back? Whereas when you're looking at project delivery and program costs, it's more about, right, okay, how much is it costing me to deliver this project? Now, in your accounts, everything may be charitable activity, but there may be a hidden cost that you're giving to a local partner. The bigger the cost, the more money it takes to deliver projects. So these are three big areas I would say, are the big leaks in if you compare it to a water bucket. First thing is recognizing the needs of larger organizations. Secondly, having robust budgets to make for decision making. And lastly, I think having your eye on hidden costs. All these three things together, make an organization lean, efficient, well controlled, and not for short term, but for the long term as well. So these are, I would say, the big areas that really make a difference.
In terms of a need for change, though, Dr. Husna, you are the founder and CEO of Global One. That's in itself is a very unique position to be in. We don't see enough female-led charities in existence. We're not seeing female majority-governed charities in existence, and yet it seems to be that there is a huge need for greater diversity, and that is, of course, in keeping with the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ for the need to equality, right? So it seems not just financial things that need to be addressed, but actually a greater need for diversity and equality.
Thank you, Joseph. Now, in terms of Global One, what we felt about 7 years ago when we set up Global One and we've been running this organization, we were very conscious that women's needs are very specific, and to be honest, women understand women far better than men do. What I am also very conscious of is in terms of international development, in terms of the INGO sector, 70% of the staff are actually women, but only about 30% are women in senior CEO positions, and of that, if we look at the Black minority ethnic communities, where a lot of the Muslim communities are concerned, only 3% of the charity CEOs are women. So in terms of my position, I think I'm the only female CEO of INGO in the UK. So it's a very, very difficult task, and I really understand what the brother was saying about large organizations, because for us as a small organization, just the governance and making sure that everything is done in an ethical, transparent and proper way, it costs as well, because there's a lot of paperwork and returns and all those sort of things. So that in itself is a difficulty. There's governance costs as well, apart from all the hidden costs that you were talking about. I think for me, what's important is with the Muslim community, the leadership in the Muslim community sector is very much men. It's a boys' club. I have to say that it really is a boys' club. So it's a very difficult sector to penetrate and come into. And I have faced a lot of issues in this sector, because I felt that people aren't really that keen on partnerships. And a lot of people said to me, "Oh, you should just close down your organisation." Or
you're kidding me. You're kidding me.
Yeah. Or why don't you just come and work for us? Or all sorts of things.
I mean, I've heard it said before that the Muslim charity sector is kind of has a mafia structure to it. There's rumours that there are supposed national WhatsApp groups of fundraisers in supposedly, allegedly colluding. Having, saying unkind things to one another, controlling the sector. Is this true, or is this all just rumours and gossip?
I don't know. They've kept me out of it, because I told you it's a boys' club.
Adeem, come on. You put the accusation there. Is this all talk?
No,
Is this mafia structure exist?
I second exactly what Nasir's saying there, and kind of can understand and have empathy for what Dr. Husna's saying as well. As an entrepreneur, this is not really my field, so the charity sector wasn't something that I trained in or I kind of designed myself to come into. This is something that was a passion, and really, as an entrepreneur, I knew I could make a big difference. Single Muslim was the start, and that's what I'm known for as a business. And I think what we did was we put a lot of the business structure, the corporate structure, and the business processes and thinking behind Penny Appeal. Penny Appeal was founded as basically the foundation, as a kind of a charity arm of Single Muslim, and it kind of outgrew that, and kind of the branding guys and the people behind Single Muslim thought, you know what, this deserves to be more than just called the Single Muslim Foundation. This needs to have its own kind of life, and the growth really is basically a fact of the fact that the charity sector at the time, 10 years ago, was behaving like very, very junior and very much in the sense of a corner shop mentality, if I can say that. And we are as a community, as a Muslim community, we're very, very much laggards. We're the last of the party. That's what we're known as. It's the Asians, the Muslims. Yeah, they're going to be an hour late. They said 3 o'clock, but everybody's here for 4 o'clock. And the people that are the most popular are going to turn up at 5, 6 o'clock. So it's not something that we're not known for. It's not something that we're not used to. But I think we have a duty as Muslims, as trustees, as people that take the trust of donors, their money, their zakat, their sadaqah. We have to do things. We have to do things in a accountable, in a transparent, and in an ethical manner, not just for the people that we're taking the donations from, but also the individuals that we're delivering the donation to, and making sure that the donations have the maximum impact that they can have. And the kind of mantra that we have in the organisation in Penny Appeal, it's all about kind of small change, big difference, and that really at the time of kind of our early years and kind of our growth years was really taken on board and bought in by the community at large, and really they bought into that. But also in terms of what's really made it work for us, not just internally within the organisation, but within the community, is a really corny saying that I use quite a lot, which is teamwork makes the dream work. And it's about a vision. It's about a vision about doing the best that we can. And again, as you said before, Joseph, as Muslims, charity is not just something that we do. Charity is part and parcel, fundamental part of our faith. So it's actually an ibadah. Zakat is not just something that we give. It's actually it's part of our worship.
So I mean, it must be understandable though when we hear Dr. Husna's story that she's been told to shut her organisation down at times. It must be understandable why those with good intention.
We had that all the time, and it was quite heartbreaking for me and really, really upsetting for me in the early days. Because all I wanted to do was support some orphans. All I wanted to do was build some wells. All I wanted to do is help some elderly individuals. And you do come across and you do come up against this. You call it the mafia. I maybe call it the establishment. And they're thinking, what are you going to do? Who are you? You're from Wakefield, a Yorkshire town, a city up north. You don't know much. This is how we do it. We do it like this. We do it in a proper fashion, and so on and so forth. So we came against a lot of that, and it's almost you got to break into the kind of the layer which is the proper charities. But even then, once you're there, it's as like Nasir was saying earlier. You've got to excel in right governance, in right trusteeship, in good leadership, and part of Penny Appeal really is doing charity work abroad, but also doing charity work here. All of our trustees are British born, and we take great pride in terms of working in the UK and on UK projects. And we think we've got a responsibility to take that leadership, because this is this is home for me. This is home for all of our trustees. And this is where our children are going to grow up, and we need to role model that and make sure that our communities are safe at home here. But just that example is no more so kind of really apparent now with COVID and some amazing work that Penny Appeal is doing here. But also all the Muslim charity sector really have come together and to fight off and to kind of alleviate hardship and poverty. In all manners and all kind of walks,
sure.
For the British Muslim community.
Can I come into this?
Nasir, go for it, and then Dr. Husna, please.
Yeah, Dr. Husna, just on her point. 30, 40 years ago, when Muslim Aid and Islamic Relief were set up, the only few organizations. Now, since then, we have many organizations. Now, Islamic Relief income is about £130 million. So by having more charities in the sector, the income of Islamic Relief didn't go down. And that's true with other organizations as well. So although we have more organizations, the UK donor is very, very generous. The income has gone up for all charities. I mean, last 10, 15 years, this is where I would say the charity boom happened. So by having more players in the market, I don't think it reduces any income for any charity. And I don't think there's any competition as such there. The point about women in the sector, I think this is not just the Muslim sector. If you look at throughout the charity sector, because all large charities are now required to disclose their figures in relation to these areas. The whole charity sector is really bad, and Muslim sector is also bad in this. I was a HR director in a large charity, and I tried really hard to recruit, and I was recruiting some senior positions. I think the process of recruitment is broken. I think the process of the way the charities basically go out to market themselves, I think that process is broken.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you there, Nasir, because I think you may be on something. And Dr. Husna, you have quite a significant female team. How easy has it been for you?
Myself and so many, Muslim women and other women in the world who are still standing up and moving forward and wanting to do something positive and wanting to protect and nurture and develop and empower people. That's what we are, and that's what we'll do. So even if people do say to us, shut down or do this or do the other, at the end of the day, as long as Allah wants us to be doing something in a certain path, we will continue doing that. So with Global One, for me, what's significant is that we carry on. We've got fantastic partners at the moment with BMTV, for instance, that we're coming into community fundraising more. historically, in the past 7 years, we've concentrated more on trusts and foundations and institutional funding. So that, as Nasir was talking about, structures and things like that, it's a lot more structured when you're applying for funding. You know exactly what your targets, your outputs, your milestones, all of that, and the system is much more cleaner and clearer there. With community fundraising, I can imagine that when you get to a certain stage when it's very, very large, trying to just allocate budgets and doing things like that is difficult. But the thing is that for me, my main concern is, why aren't people coming forward to support an organisation like Global One to capacity build and support us and, build us up and support us?
Well, it's funny, Dr. Husna, you mentioned about collaboration, because that leads me to the next question, which I really want to point to Adeem, if I'm going to be frank. We've heard some great stuff there, Adeem, from you earlier, mashallah, about penny appeal. But let's not beat around the bush here, everyone. There have been negative headlines surrounding a lot of Muslim charities in the past year. Okay, gossip is inherent within our community. This is a fact. It's known within the Muslim community. But how can you ensure accountability and quality assurance once you've become so large? And where is the scope for collaboration, Adeem?
Yeah, so I think that's the main question, and that's the question that everybody's asked me from day one. Even my mum, surprisingly enough, asked me when I was thinking about setting up the charity. She says, you're going to take people's money, but how can you kind of like be assured that the money comes in and everybody deals with the money properly? And when you've got this iman and when you've got this trust, how is that trust actually going to be delivered? And what's your safeguards going to be in terms of giving the money? You're going to give £100, say, for a project, and who's going to take the cut out of that £100? How is it going to be delivered? How do you know the feedback's going to come back on time? So this was a concern and a huge burden of mine from day one. But as you grow and as you scale up, what you need to do and what you must do with that responsibility is bring in the partners, as you say. As part of the transparency, we work with a top auditing firm called PwC for the last 3 years. We work with a number of legal teams, SMAB, based in London, and Wrigley's, who are a top law firm based here in Leeds in the north of England. We also have internal scrutiny as well as all the external scrutiny, and we've been working closely and have had an engagement for the last 3 years, ending early 2019, and we came out wholly compliant with the Charities Commission. And we work with partners and other individuals and organisations that are even greater and punch even further and higher above where we are currently. And I think it's all about having that confidence to work with people who are bigger, are better, are greater than yourselves, and they grow you, and you've got to have a team who are. You've got to surround yourself with a team who are there to knock at the door, to kind of barge in and say, look, I'm not happy with this, we're not happy with that. We've got a Wakefield base, we've been here since day one. This is where the business is also based as well. And people know us in the community. We've got an open door policy, so if anybody's got any questions, concerns, they kind of like phone up, call the office, walk in. And it's about having that transparency and having not just that transparency locally.
Adeem, talking of open doors and transparency, let's put it back to Nasir. As a kind of outsider in this scenario, as an expert, as an external expert, a respected expert, from your position, how do you foresee charities being able collectively, especially the larger ones, being able to open their doors more widely to the community? We heard Dr. Husna said just then, there's a lack of collaboration. So how can they open up their doors? And how can they, more importantly, be more transparent? Yes, we've heard Adeem mention about quality assurance tools, methods, legalities, undertaking due process, due diligence. But how do you, from a PR perspective and also from a sincere, intent, how can they communicate that and actually work together, frankly?
I think last 10 years, external pressure has been there. Like, donors are more educated now. They're asking questions. At times they're not asking the right questions, but they have started to ask questions. And there is this pushback on charities. Now, the biggest area of, I would say, credible feedback is the annual audited accounts. Now, there's a lot of focus on those accounts. A lot of these charities now spend, like, for example, ensure those accounts look nice, and they put efforts into it. They're going out to bigger firms for those accounts to be audited. And another thing, which I think since 9/11 has happened, that really sported, I would say, transparency and a pushback to the charity sector is the Charity Commission itself. Now, the amount of time the Charity Commission has investigated Muslim charities, every big charity has been visited by the Charity Commission, and they've been under inquiries, they've been under investigations, and those have really pushed charities to improve their house, to become more transparent. Now, I get to be part of those, from the charity side, those investigations, and help charities navigate through them. Now, the donors don't get to see that. And I think there's a real issue. If you pick up Oxfam accounts or pick up Save the Children accounts, mainstream charity accounts, their accounts really speak on the challenges and are very transparent. And I think this is what the charities, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to transparency or satisfying the Charity Commission. But what the charities are not doing, they're very, very active in going out and raising funds, doing Ramadan, beautiful annual report. But what they're not doing is actually talking to their donor base on what are the systems and processes they have in place.
Nasir, we're going to head to a quick break, but do join us after the break and we'll pick up this conversation.
Hello, guys.
Today's show is all about animals.
Babies. Social media challenge.
Pranks.
Criminals. With lots of hilarious clips. Stay tuned. Enjoy yourselves.
For these challenging times, amidst fragile global economy and lockdown, a few things remain precious: gold and silver. With gold rising by over 30% from last year and ISA savings accounts rising by only 0.75%, gold remains a safe haven for many. Begin your journey today by investing with the Gold Bank London at www.gold-bank.co.uk.
Welcome to Ramadan Giving, an innovative way to donate towards your favorite charities and causes daily. Never miss the night of power again. Select or enter an amount. Select the option. The process is fast, secure, and rewarding. Spend more time getting closer to Allah, God, and let Ramadan Giving take care of the rest. Have a blessed Ramadan. RamadanGiving.com
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to this special programme examining the role and the challenges faced by Muslim charities this Ramadan. Now, before the break, we were talking to Brother Nasir, an independent financial expert and chartered accountant. And you were talking, Nasir, weren't you, about transparency? And I know, having spoken to Dr. Husna before, that's something you're particularly passionate about. How are you transparent with your donors, Dr. Husna?
I think, as I was saying initially, that we've just recently, in the past just couple of years, we've started building a donor base. So it's something that's quite new to us. But I think the ways that we try to do that is make sure that we give them updates about how the funds have been spent, photographs, information. And if they have any questions, they're able to even directly come to myself. So I will be happy to speak to them. Also, we've taken donors with us. For instance, a lot of things that we've done is distribution of baby and mother's box for life or dignity kits and things. So people have come with us, say, to the Rohingya camps in Bangladesh, and they themselves have delivered things like that. When the genocide happened in Myanmar and we had 1 million people coming into Bangladesh, we were there on the ground and we went and distributed, and some of the donors wanted to come with us, as Brother Nasir was saying, because they were concerned about where is that the funds going, etc. So we said, it's all transparent. You come with us, you come and see, pack the boxes with us and deliver and distribute with us. So they did that, but we have to also be conscious about not making it volunteer tourism as well. We're very conscious of that, because we want to make sure that the beneficiaries are given dignity and respect and honour, because they're in that position, but that doesn't mean that we have to treat them, as anything less than, someone who's a dignified individual who's in a circumstance, not, by chance, not because of their own actions.
Picking up on that theme of honour, Dr. Husna, one thing we commonly see, though, in the charity sector, or at least I do looking in from the outside, there is this whole talk of, 100% donation policies. I mean, how can any, and I put this to all three of you, how can any charity assure 100% donation policy? Is it even possible?
I honestly don't think it's possible at all. There's been, many times when I haven't taken a salary or whatever, but that's because, I'm able to not have to take a salary. But and I'm passionate about this, so I just want to, get on with the work. But I think people who say it's 100% donation policy, do they not think about in terms of, say, there's a product, someone has to pack it, someone has to buy the boxes that things go into, someone has to put it on a truck, someone has to drive it from that. Who is doing all of that? Are you not paying those individuals to do that? And then, if people are running country offices, where does the admin come from? A lot of people say to me, they look at gift aid, but you should genuinely be able to allocate a portion of the funds for the administration, to be able to deliver. And, for instance, even with zakat, you have that 12.5%, which you can spend, on the administration of the zakat. So,
if I put this to Adeem, though, it must be a real hard balance as a trustee to have to turn around and say, look, we need to effectively reinvest to grow and to support growth and the growth of projects. But then at the same time, you don't want to be hit with, a false accusation of misappropriation of funds, etc. So how the hell do you balance this?
It is difficult, very, very difficult. And as a startup, the startup kind of culture and anybody who's been involved in any startup organisation, business, charity, you have to have the infrastructure. What is the infrastructure? Where do you get that phone from? Who pays for the desk? Who pays for the chair? Who pays for the broadband? Who pays for the lighting, heating? Just a very, very basic, tools that you need to run any organisation. And when you scale that up, and as Dr. Husna correctly said, one of my biggest, one of my biggest kind of points is that people think that once the funds leave the UK, there is no more admin. But actually, the funds that leave, it's a perception with donors that, I'm not going to pay for the phone bill and I don't want to pay for the admin in terms of office and, whatever it might be in the UK. But what you've got to remember is that there is as much, if not more, admin when it lands, those funds land in the recipient country. For example, Bangladesh. You know, if the funds have landed in Bangladesh, who's going to look after that feedback? Where does it go? Who's going to, look at the trucks, the lorries, the logistics side of things? And, as the organization gets larger, the processes, the feedback, who's going to look at the security? Who's going to look at the kind of like all the feedback, images, the reporting, which is so necessary in terms of, okay, how many wheat bags have gone out, how many tents have gone out, how many life-saving kits have gone out, where's the medical, who's going to look after the hygiene, the accommodation of the doctors, their security, and so on and so forth. And it is a big thing. But at Penny Peel, we have 100% zakat policy where we ring fence people's zakats, and we can only do that because we have so much more donation in terms of sadaqah lillah and on all the other pots that we have. So that's
an interesting way that the methodology that you apply. I mean, Brother Nasir, I've also heard, and you'll know far more greater on this than myself, is it true that people utilise gift aid to try and get around this as well? Not so much specifically with zakat, but the kind of marketing 100% donation policy. Is this how they're effectively the loophole that they're going through?
Yeah, let me talk about this 100% donation policy, because I've recently reviewed 20 accounts of 20 largest Muslim charities. As part of this crisis that they're going through, I just wanted to assess the state of the sector. Now, I don't have an issue with 100% donation policy. It can be implemented. And I've seen it being implemented successfully as well, but only by project. Like, for example, you go to your donor and you say to your donor, whatever money you give to this project, we're going to apply 100% to that project. Now, if there will be more needs for that project, we'll get other funds to fund that project. And that's fine. 100% donation policy can work by project, or some might say that all zakat money, we're going to apply 100% on it. So that means there'll be some other funds that they'll be, going into to fund any deficits that project or overheads that project might need to incur. Now, the issue I have is that when you have this blanket policy, all donations that you give to the charity, we're going to apply 100% projects, that's false. Because as I went through the accounts of all charities, all of these charities have cost of fundraising. Makes sense. If you're raising tens of millions of pounds, you can't just raise this. They're not coming in randomly, or people are, they find you and they give you. You have to reach to people. So there's some activity that's being done. Now, I'll give you one example. I've seen accounts where charities have not disclosed the cost of fundraising at all. They basically just show charitable activities, giving this impression as they didn't incur any cost of fundraising, which is not possible. I've seen another example where a back office cost was in millions of pounds, but the charity had allocated less than 1% to cost of fundraising. Now, this charity, raised tens of millions of pounds. Now, how could it be possible that they had only 1% of activity only on cost of fundraising? Now, why is this happening? It's happening because of this 100% donation narrative. They want to somehow defend this and convince their donors. And because of this, they're playing around with their accounts. Now, who gets damaged with this? The charities get damaged with this, because what you're doing, you're hiding your cost. When you're going to hide your cost, you're not going to be able to reduce your cost or fix it, because you can't fix what you can't see.
No,
so it's not just misleading the donors. The charities suffer because of this as well.
But Nasir, talking of suffering, though, one thing we can't see. I'm conscious we're nearly at the end of the programme, so I really want to put this last question to all of you. How do you foresee and estimate the lockdown affecting this Ramadan? I'll start with you, Brother Nasir, because there's a lot of passion in that last sentence.
Yeah, I've went through 20 charities, and these 20 charities raised £370 million in the last reported period. 225 million related to UK. Now, with my own experience of producing accounts and auditing accounts, £80 million of that was raised just in Ramadan. Around about 35% of the total income in the year is raised in Ramadan. I am estimating, and I've written an article on this, which your viewers can find on duathoughts.com, where I'm assuming that 50% of the income in Ramadan is going to be hit, because the charities are not going to be able to raise from events. The charities are not going to be able to, go in mosques, and that's going to have a big dent in what they're going to raise in Ramadan. Now, that's going to reduce their annual income by 20%. Now, the issue here is that this is going to be an immediate hit because they've already incurred their cost for Ramadan. The income's not going to come in, and this is going to affect the remainder of the year. And their income is going to reduce significantly. Charities will have to tighten their belt up. They'll have to look at, how to work together, collaborate together, maybe merge together to ensure that the back office cost is reduced. Because these are the leaks that are in the buckets that need to be addressed. But there is a very, very tough time coming. Muslim charities, compared to the rest of the mainstream charity sector, have grown rapidly in the last 10 years. And my fear is that they're going to be hit the hardest as well, because Ramadan, the peak time to raise funds, is going to be during this lockdown time. So there's going to be a change of approach that's required by trustees. There's going to be more efficiency that'll be required. So there are hard times coming, and I fear that the charities are not prepared for it, and they need to prepare for it as soon as possible.
You raised some interesting points there, Brother Nasir. Dr. Husna, what's your thoughts on this, looking ahead to this Ramadan?
I think I absolutely agree with what Brother Nasir was saying, because I saw that there's a 48% drop in charitable giving since COVID-19. But my sense is that because for 3 years I was a board member of Bond, and we were looking at the whole sort of third sector, particularly around international development. And I think the sense that I'm getting is that we actually need to now start reflecting and discussing a paradigm shift away from the usual way that we've been collecting and donating and giving in terms of charity itself. Because if we're looking at the South, where the developing world basically, how we're sort of supporting them, I think what we need to do is try and find more sustainable ways where it's not North giving to the South, or that sort of mentality. We need to start looking at sustainability and development of the South in a different way. So I think that's a bigger conversation to be had. I think this month, for all of us, I think it's good that we're in lockdown, we're able to reflect, we're able to think, we're able to really start wondering about our own insignificance in terms of the global planet, because something like COVID-19 has brought a lockdown to the whole world in terms of the superpowers, whether it's Russia or America, Europe. Everyone's frightened and everyone's scared of the future, and we as Muslims, we need to have hope, and we need to accept there's a plan in everything, and we have to stay safe, and we have to prepare, take this time to reflect and prepare for a different world after COVID, because I think it's going to last maybe 2 years, but also find different ways of fundraising. So I think the significance of British Muslim TV, online contributions, all of these are going to be considerably significant. That's it really. But I just wanted to say Ramadan Kareem to everyone, and to all the viewers, and to yourselves, Adeem and Nasir, Hayat and Joseph.
Thank you for that, Dr. Husna. I really appreciate it. And finally, Adeem, what are your predictions for this Ramadan?
Totally hear and understand what Nasir's saying and Dr. Husna's saying, but I'm far more optimistic, and I'm pretty much usually am. But I think, charity, sadly, one of the kind of trade that thrives in times of calamity, and a lot of organizations, Muslim organizations that have been born at a time of tsunamis, earthquakes, man-made natural disasters. Muslims are very, very generous, and they're even more so generous at times of calamity and at hardship. We as Muslims believe that our wealth won't be any less if we give in charity. In fact, as Muslims, we believe that the more we give, the more that we'll get back from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think the people will change their habits, and they have done. As a kind of digital entrepreneur, Penny Peel was set up in the digital world, and it's doing phenomenally well, and it's had a really good in terms of income over the last COVID period, and the fundraising as well as the community activities have all been increased. But I don't think Muslims will give any less. I think Muslims will give more. I think Ramadan will be an interesting time where we will want to give more. We will want to give more in terms of sadaqah. Of course, everybody will give their zakat. But I think the other larger charities, the mainstream charities that have more of a business arm, that have retail arms, or that have kind of like other products and kind of run marathons or 10Ks, park runs, and so on and so forth, they'll naturally be affected. But I think we're just gonna change. We're gonna see a different dynamics, a different way, but not a stop or a reduction in our charity.
Thank you, Adeem. I appreciate that. Look, it's been a very, very insightful discussion today. And, you know, we promised at the start of this programme that we would put the difficult questions forward. We would try and hold the sector to account through the experts that we have present. I'm conscious that organisations haven't been named in this broadcast, and we weren't here to give any digs or any kind of negative press or misrepresentation of the sector. But I will put an open invitation out there to any of you watching. You have a right to reply. And of course, British Muslim TV is a community platform here to serve the community. So why not come on the channel and let's have the discussion in further detail. And as we discussed just and heard there is certainly more to be talked about. Continue to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, and of course Instagram at British Muslim TV. Well, on behalf of myself, all of the team here, a big thank you to our guests. Nick Donaldson, Head of Faith Charities Engagement at the Charity Commission, who was with us at the beginning of the programme, to Adeem Younis, Founder and Trustee of Penny Appeal, Nasir Rafiq, Founder and Director of Dua Governance, and finally Dr. Husna, Founder and CEO of Global One 2015. It's been a pleasure to have you with us, and I hope we'll be seeing both you yourselves and the audience once again here on British Muslim TV. Ramadan Mubarak again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
رسول الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه.
What does it mean to follow the Prophet, peace be upon him?
Be content with that which you have been given. You will be the richest of people.
Gaza has been under siege for over a decade. 95% of its water is unsafe. 80% of its population are trapped in poverty. Please give your zakat, fitrana and sadaqah to the people of Gaza. Your support can help us provide food, water, hygiene supplies, Eid gifts and financial aid to the most vulnerable. You can make this Ramadan under siege better for thousands. Donate today by visiting ifcharity.org.uk.
Increasing global spread, providing connectivity from all parts of Pakistan to the world, reducing distances, spreading love, celebrating the seasons and colors of Pakistan. We are Pakistan International Airlines. We are great people to fly with.
Ramadan Mubarak. My Ramadan Dua book, a delightful story of Fatima and Ali's first fast. All the du'as you need for Ramadan in one handy book, including the dua for Laylatul Qadr, the Eid Takbir, and loads more. Check out Mum's irresistible brownie recipe. Brownies. We love my Ramadan Dua book. Order now at desidolcompany.com. £2.50 of every book sold goes to Orphankind by Penny Appeal.
I can really feel the pain of my sisters, you know, who are really suffering. I believe in the goodness of humanity. Leave no one behind.